Good afternoon, and we welcome everybody here and viewing to the Calcasieu Parish public briefing on Hurricane Delta and Laura response and recovery. Today is Wednesday, October 21st, 4 p.m. at the Parish Government Building. I'm Brian Beam, Calcasieu Parish Administrator. It's been a week since we've had a public briefing. We are still fairly not too far removed from Hurricane Delta. And so we did want to have a briefing this week. I don't know that we're going to have another one scheduled at this time, but of course, if the need arises, we will. But we do have some things to cover today. And I want to start, as we usually do, with Dick Grimion. He's our Calcasieu Parish Emergency Preparedness Director. And we've got an update on some of the pods for food and water services. Dick?
Thank you, Brian. Just a couple of safety tips. I want to start with COVID and remind you, Dr. Kavanaugh is going to talk about this later, but COVID is still in our community. We want you to remember to wear your mask, wash your hands well, cough into your elbow if necessary, and most importantly, maintain that social distancing when you can. If you can't, make sure you have a mask on. I have one other safety tip. A person I know had a chainsaw accident yesterday and cut off one of their fingers. It was not a pleasant thing to see, and I just want to remind people there's still a lot of cleanup going on. Be safe around your house when you're doing those activities. I'm going to take my mask off here so I can say the rest of this. All of our pods will be closing today as close of business at 6 o'clock, except for the one at Memorial Park Plaza at 3009 Gerson Memorial and Washington Marion High School at 2802 Pineview Street. Those pods will continue to be open until Saturday afternoon at the close of business, and then they will be closed as well. Since we've got most of our power back on and everything, the need for the pods has declined. So we're taking that manpower that the National Guard has there and using them for other purposes. Our parish pickup point is going to continue. That is, if you need a ride to the shelter, it will be leaving at 5 o'clock every day. If you need information about evacuation, call 211. If you need a ride back to the shelter, call 911. And we'll arrange for a pickup for you. And one final thing, we've had a lot of movement of people in shelters, both in the Alexandria shelter and in New Orleans and Baton Rouge area this week. They are people who have the damage on their dwelling is listed as light or moderate. It is determined that those people would be best to go home if they can. If they disagree with the assessment, we have a procedure for that. They the people let us know when they get into town. They go out to their house. If it's not livable, they call us. We're going to send a fire marshal's representative out to assess the building. If it needs reassessing, they'll assign it. If it doesn't, the assessment will stay the same. So I think that's all I have, Brian. Any questions?
Thank you, Dick. We'll go now to law enforcement. Appreciate Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Stitch Gilry being with us today.
Thank you, Brian. From the law enforcement side of things, we've met with all the area chiefs of police. Everybody report that their departments are back to normal operations. It's been a long haul. We can see some light at the end of the tunnel. We realize we got tough days ahead of us with this cleanup, but we've been there before, and we're going to get through it. I want to thank all the area chiefs for working with us during these trying times, and also thank the community, because without their support and them helping us, we wouldn't be able to go out there and do our job. And lastly, in closing, I want to say thank you to you, Brian and Dick and Dane and all the people here at the parish. Margaret, we are all in this together, and it's important that we all work together for one goal, strive to move forward. And I think we're headed in the right direction, and it's an honor to work with a bunch of great people that, got a common goal and working hard every day to make our community better. So that's all we have from the law enforcement side. Thank you.
Thank you, Stitch. And feelings mutual. The law enforcement has been great throughout this whole recovery period for both storms, and that's no small thing to keep that in check. We do continue to work feverishly and do a lot of picking up of debris. I've asked Alan Wainwright, our Public Works Director for the parish, to give an update on that, and we appreciate him being here today. Alan?
Thank you, Brian. I do have an update. It's been a couple of these since I've been able to give one. So the debris program is a extremely large program, but it is moving along very good, very solid pace. But we do have a tremendous amount. I have some numbers here to give you today just to kind of help quantify it and show you where we're at. So first off, we've been picking up debris now for 44 days since the storm, which started on September 3rd. We missed 4 days for Hurricane Delta. Hurricane Delta as well added more debris to the overall total. That debris is still coming out to the road. So the debris field, if you would, for both storms is still growing, and the estimates will continue to go up. At that, Calcasieu Parish unincorporated areas, our roads, the current estimate sits at 3.5 million cubic yards. That's good, except that we've picked up 70% of that to date, a little over 2.4 million. So we know we're going to go well over it. And really that's the state of affairs throughout the parish. Right now, that parish-wide, about 5.4 million cubic yards have already been picked up. So, it's going to be a long process. We initially had estimated that the first pass would take 60 days. So we're 44 days into that. I still believe we're going to make that first pass in that amount of time, roughly at 70% of the time, and the same amount on the debris that we estimate for the first pass. So that is good news, but the second and third pass will be significant as that debris continues to grow. A couple things on the overall timeline. So 60 days for the first pass. We would anticipate at least another 60 days to complete the second and third passes, which is, at a minimum, a 120-day process. We have some comparables from Hurricane Michael down in Florida a couple years ago, where that lasted about 8 months on the original debris pickup. So we're progressing well, but there is a tremendous amount to do. Couple things that you can do as a citizen to help out with the progress. So as first passes are made, if you can continue to move your debris closer to the road where it's easier to get, request not to put it in the ditches if at all possible. But we know that it's thick and it's hard to fit sometimes. So while we encourage that, we just need you to get as close as you can so the trucks can reach it. Continue to sort the debris. That expedites the process, because some trucks are hauling vegetative debris, some are hauling C&D. They're going to separate places. That explains too one thing, when sometimes you may see a truck that skips from pile to pile to pile. That's one of the reasons that's happening, is because they are assigned to certain types of debris to expedite the disposal of it all. So with that, I just want to kind of wrap up in saying we ask for your patience, and I want to, as best I can, give you some confidence that we have outstanding monitoring equipment, GPS, and a knowledge, I guess, situational knowledge of where the trucks are at, where the debris is being picked up at, and where it still needs to be picked up at. And we fully intend not to miss anyone. So please be patient, and we're going to do everything we can to not miss someone, and there will be subsequent passes. And so we encourage you to be patient, and thanks for that. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
First of all, I wanted to ask, I happened to notice a pile of debris that whoever removed it, for whatever reason, seemed to put it all around a utility pole. So is that debris just going to be there forever, you think? In other words, do they need to shift where they put that debris for it to be picked up?
Well, throughout this event, we've encountered, with the thousands of piles that have already been picked up, we've encountered those kinds of challenges. So I don't know that pile needs to be moved or shifted in particular. We would ask that you try and consider the truck driver that's having to pick this up with the equipment that he's having to get it with if there's future piles. So they will make do, and the piles will get picked up. Some are harder than others. But, everything that you can do to expedite your pile getting picked up by sorting it, putting it in the best place possible, just helps the entire community.
Is there any way for people to find out when they will be on the list, or what day or what week theirs will be picked up? And how do you decide, what goes first and what goes later?
Well, it's not really a list that we're working down. I've kind of mentioned that before. It's not a route or a list. They're working areas. We have over parish-wide, there's over 350 of these collection units out running around, picking things up. In the unincorporated areas, there's 200. So we have trucks in all corners of the parish, all over. And what they're doing is these units are assigned to groups of roads. They do a pass, and they move on to the next set of roads. But there's not a true route. There's not a list. What we do is we monitor the entire parish at once to see where they have been and where they need to go. And we do keep moving them forward to new roads that have not been picked up yet. So that's really I know it's probably not giving the answer you want, but that's the strategy that's being used, so that, like I said, we are at nearly probably over 70% of the routes have been picked up at least once now to some degree. And we're monitoring the rest to make sure that we get trucks to those routes.
What if there is debris that is causing a visibility problem? Is it better to call you guys, or should they call the law enforcement agency that governs their area, or what?
That's a good question. For Calcasieu Parish, our public works crews are trying to deal with those specifically. So we would ask those types of calls to come to our office at 721-3700, because we are trying to actively maintain sight distance and road safety out there as the debris is being picked up. And you're correct, there's some large piles that do block things, makes it dangerous. So we will go out there and touch those up. If necessary, we will move a truck there to get it picked up. But really, we're trying to make it safe and allow the trucks to work in their schedule, how they're, in their normal route that they're running, the way that they're doing things without moving them around.
And also, obviously, I guess all the debris is being picked up by contractors, right? There are some people who are concerned whether debris in the roadside ditches and the laterals is being picked up so we don't have more flooding as we go forward. What, if anything, is being done about that, perhaps utilizing the parish and city workers?
So on the roads, obviously, this is what we've been talking about now. That debris program has been running now for 40-something days, and that's the effort that will take care of the roads and the road ditches and things like that. But on drainage laterals, which is an entirely different system, the police jury has just received some proposals that we're working through now. I've mentioned it before. Ultimately, we have to submit applications through NRCS under the Department of Agriculture for funding and or approval to clean lateral systems out in Calcasieu Parish. The police jury is taking the initiative on that. The firm, if you would, consultant firm to do the work is being selected. As soon as they are picked and authorized to begin, they will begin assessing the entire drainage lateral system, preparing applications to be submitted to NRCS for potential projects to clear laterals. That's our big program to ultimately sweep the entire system. While that is going on, your gravity drainage districts are constantly picking up and working in those laterals that they are responsible for as well. So a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, but the bigger program is beginning to take shape as soon as we can get our consultants on board and working for the those applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. A couple of follow-ups on that. I guess I want to make sure I state this right, Alan, so we're clear. Whereas the road debris removal contracts are done with each government jurisdiction, meaning the parish fund incorporated and then the 6 cities each have their own. It's all with the same contractor, but they're separate. I believe for the drainage laterals, which are the big ditches that the street ditch flow into, that won't be all broken up, correct?
District gravity drainage district will have separate projects that get approved.
Okay.
The assessment phase will be one.
So it'll be by drainage district, which coincidentally, that was my second item. There are 2 drainage districts. So you won't have it as broken up as far as managing that, which is good. The other item I was going to mention, and it's very timely because it is dealing with drainage, on the ballot for November 3rd, and early voting is going on now. There are 2 propositions, one on the east, one on the west side of the river, both for consolidated drainage district tax replacements. They're already consolidated, but these millages that are proposed will actually be tax reductions all throughout the parish. Many more efficiencies gained by this structure. And that is actually on the ballot that got put on a few months ago. So in these efforts to clean all of the debris out, it's a lot more efficient in this proposal. These 2 proposals, again, it's just separated by the east side of the parish and the west, is a very forward-looking thing that we believe will bring a lot of benefit to all residents of this parish inside and outside of cities. Okay, we'll move to utilities now. I want to credit Entergy, Beauregard Electric, Jeff Davis Co-op. The power, with very few exceptions, has been restored throughout the parish. So we don't really have reports from those entities. If there are questions, certainly appreciate Margaret Harris being here today with Entergy if there are questions. But if not, that's a good news story, and they're working on a lot of things longer term. I do want to read parts of a statement from Suddenlink Communications. They sent it today. Ms. Janet Meehan with Suddenlink has notified us, and I'll just read parts of the statement, that they are about 58% complete with restoration of service in the what they call the Lake Charles area customers. Well, that means this whole area, our parish, any Suddenlink in the parish. Their goal has been to restore by mid-November or Thanksgiving all of their customers, and they feel like they are on track for that as far as full restoration. So today is the 21st, October. Sounds like that's about a month out. No, Thanksgiving is November 26th. Suddenlink is proactively crediting customers in Calcasieu Parish as far as the bills. They have suspended auto pay for customers whose service has not been restored by the date their payment was scheduled to be drafted. One last comment dealing with schools. Suddenlink has, as of today, 63 out of 66 schools are online with services provided by Suddenlink, and all administration buildings, I assume with the school board, are active. So that is a summary from Suddenlink.
We are still getting many phone calls as far as a lack of restoration, and many people are still complaining that they've received no credits for the time that they had no service. We're also getting complaints dealing with AT&T now, who say that they're getting new customers and treating them well, but not serving the existing customers that they had before the storm. And we also have complaints about CenturyLink, no internet, as well as Sprint Cellular and Vive Internet, which apparently is in West Calcasieu. So if you have any updates concerning any of the internet providers, we're getting requests for information.
Honestly, for each of those, it's best that they communicate directly with those companies. I did reach out to AT&T on a couple of those. I think you had sent me one earlier today, Teresa. I have not heard back yet, but I know once he provides an answer, I'll get that back. I'm not familiar with the CenturyLink or Vive in those situations. They haven't been giving us reports. We certainly will follow up on that, but we would just ask that they stay in touch with the company and frankly put pressure on them to keep restoring quicker. I do know just from seeing it myself and others on the Suddenlink, the credits, they have been issuing credits, and it probably depends on the customer and so forth, but I do know they have begun that at least in some areas. We have a report we don't usually deal with, but it's a good news story and something that is really needed immediately, and that is help with mosquitoes. We got some federal help here, and I'm going to ask Dane Boland, our assistant administrator here at the parish, to cover this news, which is very timely right now.
Thank you, Brian. It's no secret that we're seeing higher counts of mosquitoes across the entire parish. I think all you have to do is walk outside and you'll know that. The good thing is we know that, and I will tell you we've been on the offensive. Our mosquito control department, as recently as last night, had 2 planes up in the air, 10 trucks. But guess what? It's going to take more than that, and we knew that. And so early on, we put in a request for the Air Force to help us out. Well, today I'm proud to announce that starting tonight, at dusk actually, the Air Force will have 2 Air Force C-130 aircraft. They're nicknamed Hercules. Well, we're going to need a Herculean effort to kill all the mosquitoes. But they will go up tonight, and they will be spraying across the parish, and they will continue this mission tomorrow night. Kind of just to give you a comparison of a C-130 compared to like our King Air aircraft that we have. King Air is a pretty big mosquito control plane across the state and across the nation. It can cover 18,000 plus acres on one mission. The C-130 can treat 120,000 acres in one mission. These are big aircraft. When you see them, you will know they're C-130s, and that will start tonight or at dusk tonight. This is the most effective way, aerial missions, to kill mosquitoes in large areas. This application does not present a risk to people, pets, or other animals. It took a lot to get here, and I want to thank the Air Force. I want to thank GOSEP, FEMA, federal and state delegation, Center for Disease Control, and last but not least, our local parish mosquito control department. They did a great job of setting up the flight patterns, a lot of communication from here to Baton Rouge to the federal government. So this is very good news. Again, tonight you'll see these 2 big planes, and they will continue the mission tomorrow night. So I'll take any questions.
From a public health standpoint, are you hearing anything at all about West Nile or the Eastern equine encephalitis or any of those that sometimes cause problems here?
As recently as last week, we received our test results back, and they were all negative, no new cases of either one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. It's very good news, and I also want to thank Scott Harrington. He's here today. He is responsible for making sure all of this works and the local coordination with federal resources. Everything's connected also. Our next speaker, who we're very familiar with, Dr. Lacey Kavanaugh, is Public Health Director at Region 5. Mosquito control is certainly not just for our comfort. It's a public health issue. And so the spread of disease, and it's a great question, Teresa, is one of many things. And so I know that's music to her ears to hear this good news. And she's got an update on other issues related to health services. Lacey?
Yes, very exciting news about the spring for mosquitoes. The mosquito department, of course, tests for those diseases in mosquito populations, and we test for them in humans. And we also have had not any abnormal activity in terms of number of cases in humans of West Nile or other mosquito-borne illnesses. But of course, mosquitoes can carry disease, and so it's very important to keep those populations at bay. First, I'll talk about our healthcare system. And the good news is that many of our healthcare system partners are really starting to come back and operate under a normal status. Almost all of our major hospitals are back and functioning normally. Many of our outpatient clinics, cancer centers, those sorts of places that people receive care are pretty operational again. And so one of the things I'd like to stress today is that now is the time to get back into your routine and start considering your health again. When COVID hit in March and April, we had stay-at-home orders, and so we put off all of those things like colonoscopies and flu shots and mammograms and the things that we typically do to monitor our health. And then, of course, we had the huge COVID spike over the summer that made us put those things off further. And then we had 2 hurricanes that made us push those things even further into the future. So many of us have not had routine primary care in 6 or 8 months, which the long-term health implications of that could be huge if we continue to put those things off. So I want folks to get back in touch with their doctors, go back to the clinics and start paying attention to that preventative maintenance that we all need to be doing, because I think the healthcare system is for the most part ready to receive folks back and start providing that routine care again. That also includes flu vaccines. So it is time to go ahead and remember to get your flu vaccine as we approach the winter. I'd also like to talk briefly about the public health services, our own department. So all of our public health units across the 5-parish region are open and operational with the exception of Cameron, which is still undergoing some major renovations. COVID testing site here at the Calcasieu Public Health Unit has been back up and going for a few weeks. We are using the eTrue North Lab, and we're getting about a 3-day turnaround time for COVID testing. That is a public site. It does not require any insurance, and anyone can drive by and get tested. That operates Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. And then we also have first responder testing, where first responders bring their ID that they can get their results within 15 minutes. We restarted our vaccine drive-through this week. It actually opened today. And so folks can drive through and receive Hep A, Hep B, and tetanus vaccine in the same manner. And it's also going to be operational Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. I've heard a lot of questions about if flu is available yet. Unfortunately, it is not available quite yet, but I am hoping that by early next week, our shipment will be received from the CDC and we'll be able to start providing that in our drive-through vaccine site as well. We also have the community clinic that is staffed by the LSU Family Practice Residency Program from Lake Charles Memorial Hospital that is still providing basic primary care services out of our parking lot. And their numbers are starting to go down as more outpatient providers are opening back up. People are going back into their regular doctor's offices, and that's a good thing. But we are still providing that for those who maybe need a refill of their blood pressure medicine or their diabetes medicine or need a physical exam and don't have another way right now to get that because their doctor's office is still closed. So that is operational Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. Also would like to provide a brief update on the status of COVID. Our latest numbers here in Calcasieu Parish for percent positivity, which is out of all the tests that we get for COVID, how many come back positive, what percent come back positive. And our most recent 1-week average of data, which is from October 8th through the 14th, we were at 8.9% positivity, which is still a pretty high number. We are definitely still high in comparison to much of the rest of the United States. However, this is somewhat of an improvement compared to, we were up into that 10-11% range right before Hurricane Delta hit. So we're a little bit lower than that, but our testing volume is also took another hit with Delta and is just now coming back up to where we were after Laura, but before Delta. So we're going to definitely continue to watch that closely. We are averaging anywhere across the region, so this is for the 5-parish region, 30 to 40 people who are in the hospital from COVID at any given point in time. So those numbers have been relatively stable over the past few weeks. We haven't seen any major shifts or changes since we had wide-scale evacuations with Hurricane Laura. So we're watching that closely. And our case counts have been relatively steady through this month as well. We have a 7-day average for the 5-parish region of about 32 new cases a day. So that's sort of where we are. And so, of course, it is still important to do all those things that we've been talking about for months, wearing your mask and distancing from other people and washing your hands. And that concludes my report, and I'm open for questions.
I have 2 questions. First of all, the tetanus shot that you all can give, is that a Tdap shot? Because I know a lot of people with infants want anybody who's going to have contact with their infant to get a Tdap shot.
I believe that it is, yes.
Okay, and I know this isn't exactly your department. However, it could become a public health problem. People are having trouble finding daycare. I guess a lot of the daycare facilities, were destroyed. Are you hearing anything about that? Obviously, if people just start leaving their babies, with daycare centers that aren't really, licensed and approved, there, may be some problems. Any knowledge about that or thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I don't have much on the daycares. I believe daycares may be affiliated with Department of Ed, but yeah, sorry, I can't answer that question with any sort of true knowledge. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. We'll go to individual assistance updates now, and we appreciate Jerry Stoller with FEMA giving us an update.
Thank you, Brian. And good afternoon, everybody. I want to touch on 4 topics this afternoon. Since it's been a week since been able to update you on the federal recovery efforts, we're going to talk briefly about give you some update on the numbers for both Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. Talk a little bit about those of you who may have been impacted by Hurricane Delta, which, if you're not already aware, has been declared as a major presidential declaration for the state. I'm then going to talk about temporary housing. I know that's a topic of high interest throughout the parish. And then I'll close by just reminding all of you of some pending deadlines. So first on the numbers for Hurricane Laura, and this is the disaster number 4559, Hurricane Laura. Registrations as of this morning for Calcasieu Parish stood at 94,251. And the housing assistance for Hurricane Laura that's currently been approved is in excess of $76 million. For Hurricane Delta, again, this event was declared a major disaster last Friday evening. The disaster number is 4570. As of this morning, 10,844 households in Calcasieu Parish had registered for federal assistance, and over $318,700 in housing assistance has already been approved, and we're not even a week removed from the date of that declaration. Moving on now to just some general guidance about Hurricane Delta. Again, for any resident of Calcasieu Parish, if you received damage from Hurricane Delta and you applied for assistance for Hurricane Laura, you must re-register with FEMA for additional federal assistance. FEMA is treating each of these events separately, and we certainly encourage anyone who has sustained damage from Hurricane Delta to register with FEMA. And again, there are a number of ways you can do that. The 800 number, 800-621-3362. You can also register by going online at www.disasterassistance.gov, or you can also download the FEMA app on your iPhone and apply that way. Just because you may have registered and received federal assistance from FEMA for Hurricane Laura, that does not disqualify you from receiving additional benefits from Hurricane Delta. So again, registering for one does not affect your eligibility for the other. So we encourage everyone who may have had damages to register. I would again want to remind those households that did have damage from Hurricane Delta that it's very important to get a record, if you can possibly record or take pictures of the damage that you sustained from Hurricane Delta. It's also very important, just as it was with Hurricane Laura, for you to contact your insurance company as soon as possible, right? To begin that process to get a settlement or some type of a determination from your insurance company. What to expect, again, when you register, it's very important that we be able to prove your identity, so some form of identification for yourself, the address to your home, the insurance documentation. If you have insurance, that is going to be very important. And we also need to have a very reliable means of contacting you if you're not able to live at your damaged home at this time. Wherever you may be staying, it's important that we be able to reach you in order to stay in touch with you about your application. Now I want to spend a little bit of time to talk about temporary housing. And this again is temporary housing that was requested by the state for survivors of Hurricane Laura. I think the top line message I want to share with everyone is that, FEMA is going to be here to work with every applicant that's eligible for temporary housing every step of the way. And we are continuing to move these resources, both travel trailers and manufactured housing units, to our staging area in Alexandria. We actually, within the last week, acquired some additional property at this staging area to provide us with some more room. And we're also continuing with site surveys, both at private sites and at commercial mobile home and RV parks throughout the parish. I am pleased to report that we do have households licensed in as of today, and we have over 50 travel trailers. 50 travel trailers that have actually been installed on pads at RV parks. We have seven parks in the parish that we've entered into agreements with and that we've leased pads at. And we're also working to find additional locations for travel trailer units as well as manufactured housing units. Again, we're working with each family to find a solution that best fits their household composition and their special needs. Again, we'll look at the family composition and other access and function needs to determine exactly what type of a solution will work best for that family. I do want to remind everyone watching this that is expecting to receive a temporary housing unit that just because you have registered with FEMA, that doesn't automatically qualify you. Your home must have been determined to be uninhabitable or destroyed or with major damage to be considered for a temporary housing unit. And I also want to remind everyone that this process can take a significant period of time due to the fact we are trying to get households as close to where they're where they normally live and where their children go to school and where they work. So we're trying to do everything we can to accommodate all those needs. And again, the inspection of these sites, especially the private sites, the individual sites, can be somewhat time consuming. We have to make sure that the utility connections are there. We have to make sure that that there's enough space for the actual physical unit. And we have to work very closely with the local jurisdictions to ensure that they're permitting these units in various areas of Calcasieu Parish. There are a couple of other items that I also want to just bring up that can, in certain cases, prolong the period of time it may take to install and actually get a household licensed in. The electric connection, of course, is very critical. The property owner, if this is a private site, the property owner is responsible for securing a secondary electric meter with whoever that electric provider is. And that property owner may have to place a deposit with the utility company for that meter. The property owner may have to secure a right-of-way easement to cross an adjacent property to bring the power onto the property where the unit is being set. Poles may have to be installed, or trenching may have to occur in order to bring power to a temporary housing unit. And then once we get that power, once that power is actually installed, parish or city officials are going to have to inspect the installation and notify the power company then to energize, we call it energizing that particular meter so that we can bring power to that. So that's it can be somewhat time consuming. Another factor that we have to be very careful of, as we move these units and install them, any damage or defects to the unit itself as we go about installing it, to the air conditioner, to the water lines, to the lighting, to the toilets, any other major item on that unit, if that's identified, it's our responsibility to make sure that those are all repaired before we license an occupant into that unit. I talked about utility lines and right of entry. In some cases, rights of entry may need to be received in order for that work to be complete. And underground utilities, the location of all underground utilities must be identified by our contractor. And in certain cases, that requires a call to 811 to make sure that those underground utility lines are properly marked. And that can take, in some cases, up to 48 hours. A common question we often get is about cable or satellite services to temporary housing units. These are primarily the responsibility of the resident, and those services should be provided by whoever the resident desires or selects as their cable provider or satellite provider. The one thing I do want to mention is that no satellite dishes can be actually physically attached to the travel trailer or the mobile home. They need to be on a separate pole and away from the unit itself. So again, those are just some of the things that often think those that are expecting a temporary housing unit ask about, and in some cases, these making sure that we address these concerns can extend the time it takes to get a household licensed in. And finally, I just want to just conclude my remarks by just reminding everyone of some deadlines that are coming up. We talked about the two disaster declarations that we currently have, and it's quite interesting to note that for Hurricane Laura, it's hard to believe that we're closing in now on 60 days since Hurricane Laura was declared a presidential declaration, that registration period will expire on the 27th of October. For those of you who had damages from Hurricane Delta, you have a little more time. That registration period will expire on the 15th of December. Deployment unemployment assistance. Again, that's another form of assistance, federal assistance that's available. And this is been worked through the Louisiana Workforce Commission, and that deadline is October 30th. And those who would like to apply for deployment unemployment assistance can do so online at www.laworks.net. That's www.laworks.net. Or anyone who wants to take advantage of this can call the Benefits Analysis Team at this number. That is 866-783-5567. That number again is 866-783-5567. And then finally, the final deadline I wanted to mention is another one that's fast approaching. That's for Operation Blue Roof. This is the Army Corps program to either install a temporary roof on a damaged home or repair one that was damaged from hurricane, that was installed in Hurricane Laura and damaged by Hurricane Delta. That deadline is October 24th. If you want to apply, you can do so by calling 888-766-3258 or go online at www.usace, that's USACE.army.mil/Blue Roof. And that concludes my update for this evening, subject to your questions.
First of all, can you say how many people are actually in FEMA trailers, RV trailers, or mobile homes at this point? Because I wasn't sure what that term licensed in exactly means.
Yeah, we have 15 households as of today that are currently licensed in, and we have several others that are ready for occupancy, and we're now making arrangements, reaching out to those families to arrange for them to be licensed in.
Okay, and why are they requiring a secondary electric meter? Why can't they just use the meter that's on the structure? And can anything else be done to, speed up the process?
Well, the mobile home is actually, this is on a private site. The mobile home is separate from the home, and it just requires a second electric meter in order to provide, electric service to the temporary housing unit.
A lot of the people, or at least some of the people who are being evicted from local apartment complexes, they actually are using Section 8 housing. And I was just wondering if there is any communication between FEMA and HUD, and whether that communication may in some way help these people who live in Section 8 and now have nowhere to go.
Yes, we've been working very closely with the public housing authorities in the parish. We are aware that there are several hundred households that have received notices to vacate, and we're working very closely with HUD. The first possible solution for these households will be some alternative public housing somewhere in, hopefully, somewhere close to Calcasieu Parish that's in Louisiana. It might be a public housing option in southeast Texas. Now, if those options are exhausted and there's no other public housing option for those households, then we would become involved, and we would work with those households on a temporary housing solution. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Wanted to mention also on that topic of the temporary housing, Entergy, Margaret Harris with Entergy has informed us that they do not require for Entergy a deposit on that FEMA temporary housing, so that helps. Next, we'll hear from Ed Bush with the Red Cross.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Brian. My pleasure to be this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to update everyone on Red Cross activities. And I guess I just wanted to make pause of one note. At the start of this meeting, Brian talked about how there really isn't a follow-on meeting, and we might be getting to the tail end of these meetings, God willing. I can remember not that long ago when this room was full of people and we were looking at two long lists, a very long list of things that were challenges and things that were broken and things that needed to be repaired. And then another long list of urgent requirements, services that needed to be immediately provided to get people through this. So to everyone on that team, everyone who was here to help get through that, to find that path, to navigate toward a better place, we've gotten to the place now where we no longer have to meet on a regular basis, and that's tremendous progress. And I know on behalf of the Red Cross, we've been proud to be part of that team and get to this point. And I would just thank the people of Lake Charles and this affected parish for their patience and applaud their resiliency. So today, the Red Cross has three priorities: sheltering, identification of needs, and damage assessment. I'll walk through each of those real quick. Regarding sheltering, we remain partnering with DCFS for all sheltering requirements as part of the overall shelter transition operation. This absolutely remains a priority mission for us, and we are committed to our role as part of this team. Of note, we are currently managing 12 non-congregate shelters in Louisiana, that's hotels, 10 in New Orleans, 1 in Lafayette, and 1 in Baton Rouge. Identification of needs, we remain close to our partners and plugged in at the state, parish, and local levels. That's where we can best respond to those needs on the ground as we become aware of them. On that note, as individual cases come up, and we've had several of these, we've tried to assign specific caseworkers or to challenge our partners to get engaged, and I think we've been successful in trying to mitigate and manage those processes as they've come forward. And that's the only way we can get those solutions to those people who need help, to have them raise their hand and then connect them with those partners who can help. In some cases, that is the Red Cross. In some cases, that's some of our partners. Damage assessment. We continue to work damage assessment in conjunction with the fire marshal and with FEMA. This is also a high priority mission for us, and I was pleased to say that upstairs those fire marshals were extremely busy, taking those individual cases, verifying those addresses, getting out there so that we can get that quick relief and that quick turnaround to people who need help. Again, that's a priority mission for us. Of note, we currently have approximately 450 Red Cross volunteers and staff on this job. We do anticipate this number to start declining as a shelter population in this transition mission begins to right size and get on board with where it needs to be. Penny, your questions, that concludes my brief.
So if there is a person who, says they've been brought to an unlivable structure and they want to call Red Cross directly, is there a number that they can call? And also, with the assessment that's been that's been underway, we wanted to know if you have numbers of the number of structures that were damaged or destroyed, how many were, like site-built homes versus mobile homes, and that sort of thing.
So I'll take the second part because I'm definitely not prepared to walk through those numbers, nor do I want to. That is a very ever-living, ever-changing, ever-evolving thing, and I don't want to throw out a bunch of numbers tonight when that's a process that's literally ongoing as we speak. So to back up to the first part number, is there a number that people can call the Red Cross direct? I would say, yeah, certainly. We've always got 1-800 Red Cross, but I would also say no. Because the first thing that Dick Grimion did was he talked about the process, and the process is to call 211, and people need to adopt that process because that's where we're all dialed into. Whenever someone tries to call a direct number of one of these agencies who's partner, they run the risk of us not knowing what their needs are. So it's really important, and again, this is where patience comes into it, but people need to allow the process and the system to work. And I get that sometimes it's not immediate, but that's the only way it's going to work is if we all sort of stay true to that agreed upon plan. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate the efforts of the Red Cross and so many other agencies and not-for-profits that are involved in this. We want to wrap up today. We do have one of our electeds here. We appreciate Mayor Nick Hunter of Lake Charles being with us today.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. Garbage pickup continues throughout the city of Lake Charles with our regular routes. Again, want to reemphasize the fact that there's a lot going on the streets right now. There's a lot of new roofs getting put on houses. There's a lot of trucks and utility trucks on the streets, just pickup trucks out on the streets. So there is the unfortunate occasion where someone's garbage may not be picked up, and it may be because the trucks literally couldn't get to those cans. If that happens, we apologize, but please call 491-1220. I'm very proud of our Public Works Department, as I am proud of all of our departments. If you call that number and they miss your can and you tell them that it's in an area where it can be reached, they will get out there and pick it up. It may not be immediate, may not be exactly that afternoon, but I guarantee it'll be at least the next day if they missed your can. Also, if you need a garbage can, we have garbage cans in stock. Please call 491-1220. Alan Wainwright did an excellent job of talking about the monstrous amount of debris we have here in Calcasieu Parish. He mentioned Michael, which was an 8-month process. Our contractors have told us that even looking back on Rita, start to finish, now I'm not saying that we will be in this scenario because we have a lot of boots on the ground right now, but for Rita, when you include the commercial sites, it was 11 months. It was 11 months for Hurricane Rita before the debris pickup process was complete. And ladies and gentlemen, I get it. I drive around Lake Charles and I get frustrated and I get emotional when I see these piles of debris. But we are 2 months into the 5th strongest hurricane to hit the United States of America in modern history. We are 2 months into the strongest hurricane to hit the state of Louisiana in 150 years. And on top of that, the Category 4 or 5 that we were hit with was followed up 6 weeks after by a Category 2. I get it. I'm frustrated too. But please remember that we have very specific rules and regulations to follow if we want to be reimbursed for this debris pickup. And let me tell you, for the city of Lake Charles, I'm almost scared to say this figure, but just for the city of Lake Charles, our debris pickup tab, what it will cost just the city of Lake Charles, if we were to have to pay 100% of it, would be close to $70 million. $70 million. Now, thank God, we have a cost share with FEMA, and hopefully in due time we'll hear some good news on what that cost share is. However, if we just went off on our own and said, to heck with the system, we just want to start sending out trucks and picking up trash, we would be on the hook for that $70 million tab. And local taxpayers would be on the hook for that $70 million tab. So it is a process. It is frustrating. But we are following federal and FEMA guidelines. We're doing it appropriately, and we are pushing as much as we can to make it as fast as we can. Now, we are allowed to have city employees out working, and we have done that. We have city employees, teams of city employees scouring the city, picking up black bags, and also picking up vegetation where they can find it and locate it. And the last thing I want to mention is early voting. I have heard has been going very well at the Civic Center and other locations. I really want to give compliments to the clerk of court, the registrar of voters. I have actually had I've had some people tell me early voting for this election cycle was the easiest process that they've had in their entire lives, early voting. And look what we're going through right now. And I give a lot of credit to our Civic Center employees, registrar of voters, and the clerk of court. Kudos to those agencies. And to everyone out there, please go vote. It is very important, and it is an honor and a right that many people fought for. So that's the end of my report, unless there are any questions.
We did have a complaint that somebody is burning trash in the city of Lake Charles. Is that even legal? I would have thought it violated some kind of DEQ regulation. And if it is under certain circumstances legal, what would the rules be?
Well, you're hitting me cold with this one, Teresa, but I do believe that we have an ordinance against burning inside the city limits, so I would ask them to call the mayor's action line and report that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to kind of add on to something Mayor Hunter said. A couple things. One, the voting. Dane Bowler and I we're downtown here, and so many precincts have been moved to the Civic Center as a mega voting site. Excuse me, early voting site, but that's what it is. It is extremely well organized, and that is no small thing in a COVID environment. And everybody was helpful, and so very cooperative. There's a whole lot of stories not necessarily known that's going on that we're making do. Our public facilities in general, if you count the Civic Center and its use, if you think of the Burton Coliseum, Dick mentioned earlier, it's being used to transport these evacuees back and forth. West Cal Community Center and the arena. These are extremely valuable. They're all being used for things other than events. And I think, I'm not sure about the West Cal side, Civic Center for sure got major damage. Burton Coliseum got some damage, but yet it is paying off so many dividends, and that's a big deal to have those available on that scale, because those are our biggest buildings in the parish. That wraps up our briefing for today. Pending any other questions, again, no current scheduled ones for Hurricane Delta recovery. If we do have, we certainly are posting daily on our Facebook page, on the parish and website, any information on the storm. The various agencies also, FEMA, Red Cross, others, you can find their information online. We're going to hold off scheduling these unless there's something needed. So are there any final questions? Thank you for your time. Have a good rest of the week.